The following unofficial rebroadcast of TWiT Live is brought to you by Odd TV and CashFly. CashFly's global network delivers your content, ensuring your website, streaming media, and downloads exceed expectations at cashfly.com. And what we're talking about, we're in a digital era. We output digital content. Much of our content is digital. When I play audio from the computer, when I do Skype video, in fact, the only thing that's not digital in our whole operation is the mic, right? The various mics. So it's kind of crazy that we're going through an analog mixer because everything, no matter what, gets converted to analog so that we can mix it. And then the mixer turns it into FireWire digital and sends the digital content over the FireWire into Audition. And from that point, it stays digital. So it makes perfect sense to go 100% digital.
What's interesting is that up until a few years ago, all of the so-called digital consoles that were on the market were really just digital versions of analog consoles.
They just made Onyx 1640s with digital in them.
Yeah, exactly. And even in the broadcast world, professional consoles at TV and radio stations were just digital versions of analog consoles. And what the Axia console has done, the whole idea here is it's all audio over IP. So no longer do we have an output connected by a wire over to an input.
Right.
And then another output connected by another wire over to another input somewhere, like hooking up your home stereo.
Right. In
this concept, all the audio is on the network. So it's just like if you had, I don't know, how many computers do you have in office in this
well,
office
on my
space?
desk alone, 14.
Okay. So you may have,
we have probably another
couple dozen computers.
Couple dozen.
And if they all, and you can print all of them, you can send print jobs to a color printer somewhere if you want to, because they're all on the network.
Right.
But what if you had to run a wire from each computer that wanted to print to the color printer? Well, that's how we've been doing things in broadcast for the last 100 years.
It's all point-to-point almost.
It's all point
It's like
to point.
a telephone switching system, basically.
So the idea of IP audio, of course, is you put audio into IP packets and you put them on a network. And then you can use them anywhere. You can share things. You can send commands for closures like, hey, CD player, start now.
Right. So it's not just audio that's being sent back and forth, but actual commands are also being sent.
Right.
Now, Ethernet is a collision-based network. So is there latency latencycy latency c issues? I mean, do sometimes packets not get through? How do you handle that?
Collision-based Ethernet. Now, Leo, that's your grandfather's Ethernet.
Oh.
Yeah. Modern Ethernet.
Well, my grandfather's Bob Metcalf, so you're absolutely right.
Modern Ethernet is usually all switched. And in fact, in an Axia network, and our trademark term for this is LiveWire. And LiveWire is not, it's an invention of Axia, and there is a patent in there somewhere, but it's really just a collection of protocols that are already used. There's UDP.
Right.
There's
TCP.
There's RTP, real-time protocol.
Right.
There are
that supports QoS. Right.
Right. There's QoS is involved. IGMP, Internet Group Management Protocol. There's ICMP, which I forget what that's all about.
Yeah. That's
so
ping.
And so we do have to use switches that are managed and modern. Usually
they say, okay, this traffic is prioritized. You go through. When you're done, I'm going to send the command out.
And these switches also are deterministic. In other words, they learn where all the MAC addresses of the devices are. When a packet comes in, the switch already knows where it's supposed to go.
It doesn't broadcast it. It sends it directly.
Although you can have broadcast packets, and we do for certain things like advertising the names of sources. Like
That's kind of cool. You plug in a source. And it's almost like a zero configure rendezvous. It says, I'm here. This is what I do.
Yep.
It registers itself.
Yeah, and all the other devices. So all the other devices build a table of what's available. You take a place like Minnesota Public Radio in St. Paul, and they have 1,000 sources on the network, 1,000 audio sources on the network. And if they unplug one, it disappears from everywhere in 30 seconds. They plug something new in, and it appears everywhere in 10 seconds.
How many? So this is used most commonly in broadcast facilities?
This was designed for radio broadcast. Some TV broadcasters are using it as well. We had a couple of interesting problems we had to solve, and if you want to go more in depth, maybe on a different interview, we will. But the main thing we had to solve was latency.
Well, that's exactly what I was asking. Yeah.
Because if
you can't wait for a packet.
Well, switch the camera on you there, Leo. Yeah. Leo has a mic and headphones.
Right.
Now, if it takes too long for his voice to travel from his mic to the headphones,
I hear it. It's like delayed. It's delayed.
It's horrible.
Yeah. And anybody who's ever, I think a lot of our listeners have probably used like Skype and other systems where there is some latency built in. Like this is why you don't hear yourself back in Skype, because the audio that's coming back from Skype is coming through the computer and USB. It would be delayed.
Right.
They don't want you to hear yourself because it would be even if it's a 10 millisecond delay, it's enough to make you crazy.
And indeed, 10 milliseconds from mouth out to ear in is where things begin to be unacceptable to the human head.
It just bugs you.
It gets like a comb filter effect. And
right.
then longer than that, it starts to get to be a slap echo.
It's a hello. I now consider myself the greatest man. Yeah, and that's something anybody who's ever used these things. In fact, Colleen and I were looking at Blue makes a thing called the Icicle, which is a USB adapter for XLR mics to go in the computer.
Yeah.
And it's nice, it's cheap, and I said there's a problem with it. You can't monitor the audio from the Icicle, so that means you're monitoring from the computer. There's going to be major latency. It's not going to be acceptable. You want to have a headphone jack on it. So this somehow bypasses that?
We got the latency down by doing two things. We got the latency had to be under 3 milliseconds.
3 milliseconds.
By the way, most digital consoles have a latency of just a hair under 2 milliseconds.
Really?
So that's accepted. Yeah, because most of that is D to A to D, analog digital, digital analog conversions, or sample rate conversions. You go in with a 44.1 sampled CD
go
player,
to 48.
and internally the thing may be 48 or 96.
Yeah.
And so you've got to sample that, and that takes time. And then there's buses involved. There's DSP machinations going on.
It's a big problem.
So
it's why people resisted digital recording for so long.
Because that delay. Yeah. Well, we got this down in the Axia system. We got this down to 3 milliseconds from mic in to headphone out by doing two things. We found out that small packets traverse switches much faster than do the. Usually, we try to in IT we try to make big packets,
right?
Because
the
payload's a fixed size. I'm sorry, the header's a fixed size. Let's make the payload as big as possible for that header.
Right.
Well. That payload is pretty big and represents a significant amount of time of audio. And now, by significant, I mean some certain hundreds of microseconds. So we made packets very, very small, something like 24 samples, or maybe it's 12 samples. But it becomes inefficient, but that doesn't matter. We got all the bandwidth we need.
Right.
We got tons of bandwidth on a local area network. By the way,
are you gigabit? Or are you 100 megabit?
We're mostly 100 megabit. Okay. Gigabit doesn't help on those links, doesn't make it any faster.
Right.
But where we connect one studio to another, if you grew to another studio and they were both Axia,
then gigabit.
Then be a gigabit link between those.
Between them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we use short packets. And the other thing that we do is we clock everything. There's a distributed clock system, and the short explanation of this is, when you plug your cable modem or DSL modem in, there's that light that blinks for a while, and then maybe it blinks slower or maybe faster, and then it locks up. Well, what you're really doing there is you're syncing this device, which needs an accurate clock, over a jittery network. How do you do that? How do you get really precise on two ends when you got jittery in between? Well, there's algorithms that do that and average things over time.
We actually covered this on Maxwell's house because the same issue comes up with GPS. Because you have to to sync the clock to a satellite.
Exactly.
Which really presents
same with your ISDN box here as well. Same. So we developed algorithms to sync everything within a quarter of a sample. Every device on the network is synced to within a quarter of a 48 kilohertz sample, so that you never get phasing effects.
Right.
When you mix things together, it all mixes together at the same time.
I'll be honest, my big concern. I mean, one of the reasons we use analog. Analog has some negatives. Analog noise can be introduced. There's other issues with analog. We have all sorts of problems with noise in here, but you don't have that issue, and frankly, that's why I've used analog for so long. You notice I'm using using condenser mics. Same thing. I'm an old-fashioned guy.
Well, I love these mics.
These are dynamic,
these are
and they're
awesome.
great. They're the
These
best mics in the
mics.
world. Yeah.
These are the PR40s.
Yep.
Yeah. I've got an RE27 at the house, and it sounds pretty good.
These even beat the RE27, which is amazing.
Bob Heil tuned these for the human voice.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. So I know about Telos. I've used Telos for years. In fact, as long as I've done radio, we've had Telos Zephyrs. That's what I use to connect to Premier Radio Networks. I have a Zephyr here. It's a digital device, but it's got analog ends. In fact, this one is the Extreme is actually a little mixer. It's got, I think,
that one has
4 channels in, and I don't use it as a mixer. I have a big mixer, but it goes in there. It converts it. It compresses it into, in my case, L2. We use
MPEG layer 2.
MPEG layer 2. Yeah. But you could use AAC.
By the way, I know Gerhard Stoll. he is the grandfather of Layer 2.
Oh, really? Well, he is beloved. In fact, NPR still use Layer 2.
They do for a lot of their interviews because they're mono, and they do Layer 2 at 128 kilobits.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
L2 128.
Maybe now's not the time to tell it, but there's a whole story behind Steve Church, the founder of Telos, and why the Zephyr does MPEG-3 and why at 128 and why two ISDN circuits bonded together are also 128. And there's a whole story about how Telos almost this close to owning the rights for MP3 all over the world forever.
Really?
But we didn't.
We'll save that for another day. Yeah. Nevertheless, this great device has served me very well since 2004 when I started using it with KFI. And
good. You got it after we figured out the bugs. Okay.
No, it's been great. And every radio station in the world has it. So whenever I do interviews, we'll use the Telos.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll use worse codecs like G.722, which is kind of the lowest common denominator codec, but fine for AM radio.
Common for sports because it is the lowest common denominator. Everybody's got a G722 codec.
Right.
By the way, telephones. You know what that codec is?
It's a G.dot, isn't it?
Typically it's G.711. And that codec will also do G.711.
Well, I found that out because we left it on one day and calls. I got a sales call,
called it, huh?
And then I thought, wow, this is the best phone interface. There's no, and so we whenever we do phone calls, I have them call the Zephyr. Yeah. I know we're not supposed to.
No, it works fine.
It works fine. Yeah. And it's because it's a digital. It's by the time they're calling probably an analog circuit that goes to the switching center, and now it's all digital right through to here. Yeah. I get no noise. It's very clean. So we do all our phone calls that way. I know that's not the best way. You make an interface. I've heard. In fact, we use the Telos.
We do. The thing is that device when hooked to when a phone line dials it, it doesn't have a hybrid. So it's just it receives the audio from the phone and it sends your audio out. But if some of your audio leaks back, it doesn't null that out.
Right.
And that's what a hybrid does.
Right.
It'll null
we have it. We use Sherman Oaks, the premier setup.
Yeah, when you're taking your calls,
Telos.
it nulls those.
A lot of stations have Gentner. That's the other competitor.
Yeah. Actually, Russ Gentner's out of the business now. Another company called Comrex bought the Gentner line.
Comrex is an old name in radio. That was the old days when you'd go to the carpet store and they'd get two lines and you use a Comrex box to bond the two lines, and you still sound like this.
Yeah.
Those are the old. Kirk and I go back away, I think. So this is exciting. I'm showing people right now a picture of what we're going to have. So the interesting thing is the power station is doing all the work. It's really just a big old computer.
And actually what's in the power station used to be separate components. We still sell them separately as well. We call it the Axia separate system, where there is an Ethernet switch, and it can be a Cisco or an HP switch, a high-quality managed switch that has all the right protocols.
Not the kind of consumer switch we're using here.
Yeah,
probably.
that you can hook a couple devices up to that, but when you get a complicated network, they just kind of fall apart.
You need a manager.
You need a managed switch. It has also in that power station box, there's a certain amount of audio in and audio out, because we know you're going to need some of that.
Analog in and audio.
There's analog in and out. There's AES, EBU in and out.
Oh.
And there's also some mic in, so you can plug your mics directly into it. But since you've got plenty of mics here, we're also supplying you with a microphone node, which is 8 mics in and 8 analog.
Good, because we do as many as 8 mics sometimes. Yeah. So the idea there is this node is its own A to D converter. The mics plug into it. And then it connects to the power station how?
Well, over Ethernet.
I thought it was CAN bus.
Actually, the CAN bus is between. You see the. Put the picture back up there on the website. You see the little cable running between the power station.
This blue cable,
and the power station and the console itself. That's CAN bus.
Okay, so that's not exactly Ethernet.
Right. We chose CAN bus because we knew it'd be short distances between the console and its power supply, its control device. CAN bus is very robust, and it's very common, and the interfaces are cheap, and we actually didn't need something as complicated as Ethernet for the console just to talk to to its power supply.
So the power station is everything goes into it.
Yeah, including that. Oh, here's what's cool. There is a Core 2 Duo processor in there, because it can do a lot of MIPS really cheap.
Right.
So there's a Core 2 Duo in there. One side of it is running the DSP engine. That's mixing together the things you tell it to mix together.
You don't have a dedicated DSP.
No.
Now, you don't need one.
Well, our company makes plenty of products that do have dedicated DSPs, but the development costs are quite a lot higher.
Sure.
The other side.
So why not use an off-the-shelf general-purpose CPU?
If it suits the purpose, it's great. Now it's hard for a company like us to use off-the-shelf motherboards because those change every few months. So we got to have different drivers and blah, blah, blah. We didn't want that headache.
So you have a custom motherboard.
We have a custom motherboard, and the processor module fits on that motherboard. There's some support devices around the processor module. So one half of the Core 2 does the DSP. The other half actually runs the console, runs all the lights. And
well, that's what's interesting. Now, if we look at the console, it's a mixer. You normally think of the mixer as doing all the work. That's just a control surface.
What you're looking at there is a mouse that looks like a console. Yeah,
it's not USB, but it's basically that idea.
It's a CAN bus connected mouse that looks like a console.
So the faders and everything are really not faders or pots in the way we're in the analog world thinking of them.
Right,
they're just a signal to the power station, raise or lower the volume.
Right. Exactly.
Wow.
And even inside the power station, there is Ethernet running around inside it, so that when you move a fader up and down, it tells the console power supply that you're doing that. The console power supply talks via Ethernet to the mixing engine in the same box that says, hey, this source right here, this Leo's mic or John C. Dvorak's mic, move this up to mix this now at this level. Multiply it by this factor instead of by this factor.
It's all digital. That's the thing to underscore. It's all digital in there.
It's extremely
In fact, it's almost like Audition or something is running inside that box, and that's really what we're kind of doing. It doesn't record, though, does it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't record.
So it outputs...
It sure could, but it doesn't.
That's just another box. It outputs what? How do I get... there's no point in doing all this if I can't record it.
It outputs several different ways. It doesn't put out FireWire, and I know you guys use a lot of FireWire around here, so I've been working with Colleen. She has other boxes to do that conversion. But it does put out analog for the things that still... Like headphones need analog.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It can put out AES EBU, so if you've got a DAT machine or some other device that wants AES EBU, you can use that. But the significant thing is it also...
We have, Colleen, by the way, a number of Motu devices which will take AES and convert them to FireWire. So we can always go through a Motu if we decide to do that.
And then...
but now, this is what I find interesting, is this driver. The idea of having a Ethernet. Can I have an Ethernet to my Audition machine?
Yes. Every PC and Mac on your desktop can be connected to the Axia system and play audio to it and record audio from it using nothing more than the Ethernet connection that it already has.
So what we're going to do is we're going to create a little audio LAN.
Yes.
In here, and we will make a dedicated LAN. We talked back and forth about this. We may be able to get away with using it for data as well, but I think we're going to separate it. So every machine will have two NICs. One for the audio LAN and one for the the network.
If you spend a lot of money and you're very careful, you can mix audio and business on the same LAN.
I don't want to do that.
For example, Minnesota Public Radio needed 200 desktops.
They're not going to have two LANs in that environment.
Right, that they have one LAN and a
so every
Mondo
desktop in their office is an audio workstation, effectively.
And yes, with linear, that is 48 kilohertz sample, 24-bit depth.
Oh, that's
linear
important.
audio.
This is not being compressed as it goes around the LAN.
That's a good point.
Fully uncompressed audio.
Fully linear. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's better than CD by a magnitude.
Yeah.
Because it's 24 bits.
So we have a dedicated LAN. Every computer will have two Ethernet ports.
Right. One for your business LAN and one for your Axia LAN.
And the Axia LAN will go into, let's say, this gateway where my Audition is running. Audition will look at a driver, not a sound card.
The driver will look like 8 sound cards to the Windows operating system. Windows will say, "Oh, you have 8 sound cards. Which ones would you like to use, Mr. Audition?"
Wow.
And then you'll just tell Audition.
So I could say channel,
use this, and tracks 3 and 4 use this sound card.
Is 8 the max?
Actually, 24 is the max. 8's convenient. I
occasionally will need more than 8 channels.
It's the driver key. We'll give you a driver key.
But where they come from, well, they all go through. I guess they all go through the power station. Because so I'll give you an example. What we just had is we had we could have as many as 4 people on Skype there.
Right.
Somebody on Skype here. A phone call coming in there, that's 6. Audio coming from the Mac, that's 7.
Right.
And then add me and you, that's 9.
Yeah.
So that's a really unusual situation, but we could conceivably go one more than...
And by the way, most of those were mono channels?
They're all mono.
Yeah.
We don't do stereo.
Gotcha.
We could do stereo now, I guess.
I found Bit Gravity. I thought you were doing some... Oh, no, it's mono audio, but in both speakers.
Yeah, Bit Gravity has a capability of stereo.
Yeah.
We probably, if we could, would go stereo on our streams. Where we're probably going to stay mono is on the audio downloads. It's mostly voice.
Right,
Although somebody said, why don't you use joint stereo?
Right. That takes almost no additional overhead.
It's only stereo where the content's stereo.
Until you got content. Yeah. So all your bumpers, your bumper music.
We might go joint stereo. I'd have to test it to make sure all the devices. I mean, does an iPod work with joint stereo? I don't even know.
Yes, you can.
I'd hate to compress something in a way that can't be played back, and I suddenly get a call from somebody saying, "What happened? I can't hear TWiT anymore." So we have to test it. But if we would go joint stereo, I think that's worth it. I mean, we play some music, like I just played a song there.
Yeah.
That's going to come out mono on the soundtrack. So
it's okay. We do mono stereo, and the console, by the way, does surround.
Now tell me about that.
Well, because it's IP and because we have lots of bandwidth, the console doesn't care if it's mono, stereo, or 5.1, or in our case, typically for broadcast, if broadcasters ever start broadcasting in surround.
I want to do surround.
It's
How would I do
plus
surround?
5.1.
I need a Dolby encoder.
So
what you're saying is you save position information for each microphone, or I can set position information.
Right,
for
you
each
can set
input.
the console handles them all discreetly.
Yeah.
And for stereo sources, it'll up mix to 5.1. For 5.1 sources, it'll provide a down mix to stereo if you want that. But when you encode it, there's this cool method called the MPEG surround method. It's now a standard.
You were telling me about
this.
The
MPEG surround method transmits stereo just as normal. So everybody that is listening in stereo gets the normal stereo. But there's a 6 kilobit per second data stream that rides along with that has all the steering information. Because if you listen to a stereo down mix has every instrument, every sound that's in the 5.1 surround, even stuff that may be delayed by mics that are farther out.
Right.
So everything's in the stereo surround. Fraunhofer, the guys that invented MP3 and so many other things, they figured out this way to get that bit rate down to 6 kilobits. They're not doing it quite yet, but CBS Radio is going to be streaming WZLX in Boston in 5.1 MPEG surround. And it's just a plug-in for Winamp, and bam, you got it in surround.
It would play as normal MP3 in an iPod, but if you were listening on a PC with Winamp or whatever else has a plug-in for it,
if that's
you'd get
extra
the
6 kilobit per second data stream is
seen in this process.
Yeah.
So what would it take for me to do that? I like that idea. I want to do that. How do I do that?
We'll talk offline. We'll figure it out. It's not that much. It takes the
system can handle it.
It takes another one of our boxes that's running Fraunhofer software.
Well, we'll buy another box. I don't want you to give me any more stuff, but we'll take a look at that because it would be really fun to do some of our shows. It would balloon the size up, not just by the 6 kilobits, but by the stereo as well, because we'd have to broadcast in stereo.
Remember, your stereo is
we could use joint stereo for that.
You generally do 64 kilobit mono, right?
Yes.
Well, and is that an MP3 or AAC?
MP3.
Okay. Can you switch to AAC? Because Flash now supports AAC.
Right.
Okay, so you could do 64 kilobit per second AAC stereo. AAC joint stereo.
It needs to be an AAC.
Yeah, and that wouldn't be bad.
No, it wouldn't be bad at all.
Then if you add a 6 kilobit stream to that, now you're up to a total
I remember that. When we did
72.
Mac Break Weekly in Dolby headphone, we had to offer it as an AAC. MP3 doesn't. Well, why not MP3? I thought you said Fraunhofer did this.
They could do it. I don't know that they have.
They've
yet.
done it to AAC.
Their MPEG surround tech will work fine with that with MP3. When you're writing the code, you can set your own standards.
Okay. All right. I have so much to learn. First of all, I'm going to have to learn how to use this board by Saturday. That's going to be a big one.
Hey, here's how you do it. You push the profile button and you hit your Westwood One show.
Yeah.
All the
love
faders.
that.
The faders are motorized.
I love that. So there's a profile for every show we do.
There will be. I'll show Colleen how. We'll do a couple or three, and Colleen.
Yeah. I can learn. I need to learn more than Colleen because she's not here all the time. And if Colleen's the only one who knows how to do it, there will be trouble.
Yeah.
There will be blood. So let me think. What else do I want to know? So just looking at it again, we've got a control surface. We've got the power station, which is a big PC.
Right.
We've got some units going to the mics.
We have a mic node. Yes,
a mic node.
Handle all the mics. We're going to have headphone feeds for. Oh, we've got
those cute little headphone modules are really cute.
Yeah. These are all CAN bus controlled, connected to the console. Actually.
So we're going to build those into the tables here, and everything. They'll have little buttons that they can push.
And those will let if somebody has to cough, they can push. Push cough button.
Oh, here's an interesting thing. So this actually came up. I think you saw the pain I was going through with handling mix minus with our Skyposaurus. Is how this conversation began.
Yeah.
Because, and this, for some people will be obvious, and for some will be a little bit of a brain twister. But when you are talking to people on Skype, and you have multiple people, you want to send them everything but themselves.
Right. If you send them themselves, it'll be real confusing because it's delayed.
It's that delay we talked about.
If they hear everybody else delayed, it doesn't matter. I mean, if they hear 200 milliseconds delayed, just like your cell phone. If you're talking to somebody back and forth on the cell phone, there's a little bit of delay, but it doesn't bother you. But if they were sending you back to you,
right?
Holy cow!
Right.
So
we send them mixed minus. That's what I get from the radio station too. I have a little bit of delay on the ISDN line. I don't want to hear myself coming back. So the problem is we have to do all this. In fact, one of the reasons we got this 1640s because it had more aux buses. It had 6 aux buses. So we use aux buses to tell the mixer what to send to each Skype channel, and each Skype channel gets something different.
Exactly. So each Skype channel is assigned an aux bus, and you've got all the faders on the aux bus turned up, except for the one that coming from the thing that you're feeding
to. If you look at my my board, it looks like a little matrix, like a little spreadsheet. And there's a diagonal line of pots turned down. That's how we're doing it. But it's a pain in the butt, and I have to always pay attention to it. And frequently, like today, I got a guy on. He says, I can't hear anybody. I said, well, you're potted down. I got to turn up your aux bus. So all of this stuff is going to go away?
Well, the neat thing about designing a console in software instead of in hardware is that you can tell it how to behave with each different kind of source. You see, the Mackie mixer or even other digital mixers
is dumb.
Don't know if this is a mic coming in or if it's a Skype source or if it's an electric guitar or what. So the Axia console knows because you've told it, hey, when I bring up Skype 3, well, that is a codec essentially, and it has a backfeed available. In other words, we can feed something back to it, but we would never feed itself back to it.
You know better.
We know better.
You're no fool.
Now, there are some options as
the
to
stupid board doesn't know better, but you know better.
There are some options as to what you can feed it to somebody, but by default, we're going to feed it everything but itself.
Right.
And we got another cool mode. If during your breaks, if you take a break, you can turn all the faders off, and everybody can talk around.
They can hear each other, but it just doesn't go on the air.
It doesn't go on the air.
See,
because all the faders are off.
Another big problem is, and I just had to do this, where people need to tell each other something like a phone number, but we don't want them to say it out on the air. That would be very, very helpful. Happens all the time with a studio. I'm having a conversation with a studio. We don't want to broadcast that. We've even got a problem where on the radio show, during the live broadcast, I don't want to broadcast the premiere audio, but I want to record it. I could do that also. I could say, this thing can hear, but nobody else can.
Yep. We can do that.
It's going to be a big
these little modules we were talking about that talent here will have. There's also a private talkback button. Oh, there's one right there.
Oh, good.
It's a private talkback button. If you push this private talkback button, then the person, while you were talking, I could talk back to you in your headphones only. Like, Leo, I really have to go to the potty.
This is going to be, and this works even on Skype. I'll be able to talk to, if Merlin's or Dvorak's breathing, I can say, John, stop breathing into the mic, and only he hears it.
Yes, only he hears it. Yes,
I love that.
Actually, for him, you on the console.
I do that
talk
on
the console.
On his
fader on the console. Touch talk back, and only he hears it.
This is beautiful. I mean, this is real studio gear. And is this an LCD here? What is that?
That is an LCD. Although we do have modules coming out later that have OLEDs on them, which are very pretty.
So this will say your mic 1, or what will that say?
Actually, you're showing it. Okay.
Yeah.
That is the headphone selection.
Oh, so when I turn this,
normally everybody. Well, there's two. That button also pushes down.
Yeah.
Besides turning, the headphone knob also pushes.
Okay.
So if you just grab it and turn it, it's your volume.
Okay.
If you push it and then turn it, you're selecting what you're going to listen to in your headphones. Now, normally your guests would not touch
listen
that,
to program.
and you can restrict that list of their choices.
Yeah.
But if you had a special show where somebody had to be monitoring somebody on CBS News while they were also on
you
your
could
show,
hear the talkback.
They could listen to something else.
This, we're gonna grow into this board because we're gonna use it in a lot of ways.
After we leave,
we'll
Friday,
grow into
you'll
this
figure
thing.
out. Hey, what if we could?
Yeah, no, we'll grow into it.
Can we do this?
Because we do. One of the things that's so great about this is we are always doing new, different, unusual things that many people have never done before, and that's kind of the fun to have a board like this that can let us be that flexible. Is great. Now, talkback I understand, mute I understand. That's like the cough button. What is this? This is on off. Yeah, on button.
Right. A person could turn his mic on or off.
Okay.
Like if you've got to turn his mic on and he wanted to say something, he could turn it on. Or if he says, I'm going to get up and go to the bathroom.
Turn it off.
I told Leo I'm going to go.
Right.
Now I'm going to go. He could turn his own mic off.
I'm going to let him do that until they misuse it, and then I'm going to take control back because I can. I don't have to let them do whatever they want. Wow, this is slick. And this has on the back of it These
It looks like
RJ45s,
Ethernet,
but those are CAN bus.
That's CAN bus, yeah. And that's daisy-chained CAN bus. And then there's a rotary dip
Is it
switch.
serial?
It is. It's a high-speed serial plus 48 volts power.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then presumably there's a headphone jack somewhere on it.
Actually, well, remember, there's no audio on the CAN bus.
Yeah.
And there's no audio in the console. So where does the audio come from?
So I'm signaling back to the power station, which says turn up the headphones, which are plugged into something completely different.
Exactly. And by the way, that output for the headphones could be anywhere on the network theoretically. I mean,
it could be upstairs.
It could be via
it could be
5 or
Dave.
2 miles away if you wanted to. But yeah, it could be upstairs.
Well, we are at some point. We've talked before to some providers, and we may in the long run end up doing some remote connections to, say, as we do already with Premiere, but say to a television network in Los Angeles, where they would want to be able to have that kind of two-way conversation.
A Vivix connection or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. That's just so neat.
We
so
do.
Excited,
you know what? We do the same stuff. You know the Dave Ramsey show. He does the financial
Dave's
advice.
great,
Cut up your credit cards and get a second job.
Right.
Dave Ramsey.
Well, you just did the whole show in about one sentence. That's very good.
Dave has an Axia console there.
Oh, he does.
But he's also on. He does live. While he's doing his radio show, he does live cut-ins sometimes
for the local stations
on Fox Television, and sometimes on CNN or
while he's doing the radio show.
While he's doing the radio show, now he's also on Fox Business Network, so he's got a whole separate show for that.
Right.
And so they use the same console for all these joins and feeds
That's
and IFBs
what I
back
want.
to New York. And
we're going to end up being that complex, I have a feeling.
Yeah.
And we have partners all over the world. We have that's exactly what we want to do. That's really this is so exciting. I don't know how to thank you for this. Do I have to give you advertising? What do I need to do to make you not think I just ripped you off for $1 million? We're very happy about this. Let me just say that, Kirk. Thank you.
It's just a gift, and thanks to my bosses. Yeah.
Well, thanks to Telos and to Axia and everybody who's watching. Run out and buy one of these for your home. Buy two for your home. You need it. No, but I think that how many stations are you in doing this?
The Axia consoles are now on the air or in production at 1,500 radios. There's 1,500 consoles out there.
Wow.
When we're a 5-year-old company with that, so that's
amazing.
That is really amazing, and they're on. Not every continent yet, but I was just in Hong Kong. There's a TV station, the Hong Kong equivalent of Bloomberg Television, uses our console for their Hong Kong Bloomberg Television.
This is really clearly the next generation of audio processing.
There's 150 of these consoles in India.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm really excited. I mean, the truth is we don't really have to do this. We don't need to do this. But boy, is this going to make a difference in our production.
I've been a fan of your podcast for years, Leo, and certainly caught you on Tech TV on the screensavers. And occasionally on your podcast, I would hear a little audio problem or, wait, I got to do this. And I'm thinking, if Leo had our console, this wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
And so I thought,
I'm excited. Thank you, Kirk. So, okay, the plan is you're in town. You're going to hang out. Your wife came with you, which is nice. You're going to enjoy the wine country. Tomorrow, nothing to do. I'm trying to reschedule our Thursday morning show. If I can do that, then we'll be out of here. Our last thing will be Wednesday when you do a PC Perspective at 7 p.m. Wednesday, and the place is yours till 11 a.m. Saturday. And do you think you can do this? I mean, this is crazy. You're tearing out an entire analog system and putting in a digital system.
It usually takes longer to tear out the old stuff than to put in this new stuff.
Yeah. But Colleen's fast at tearing stuff out. Try to be gentle, Colleen. We may want to use it again.
I got a friend at a station in McAllen, Texas. His name is Jorge Garza. Jorge's the chief engineer for these Spanish language stations in McAllen, Texas. And his first Axia installation took him 2 weeks. Jorge's scared of anything over 5 volts. Well, his second Axia installation, it was this big 50,000-watt talk station. He had 3.5 hours to get it done.
Wow.
He did it in 3.5 hours.
What?
He says, hey, Kirk, man, it took me longer, to take out the old stuff than to put in the new.
Well, I guess once you get the idea, it's just snapping in. Well, it's all here, right? Everything's already here. 2 more things coming tomorrow. Colleen's been crimping like a crazy fool. So all the Ethernet cables are crimped to length. Yeah. We've already racked. We've got the racks, and we've already racked this power station. What are those 2 other? That's the mic modules in there, and the power station. So I think we're as close as we can be to ready. I mean, you've got an engineer coming up, right?
Besides me, yeah.
So 2 engineers.
Yeah, 2 engineers. Yeah.
Colleen, is that going to be enough? Should I come in? When do I get trained? Can I get trained on Friday?
You can train on Thursday.
No, you guys are really optimistic here. You think
you can get trained, but if you want it done on time, don't come in.
I'll stay away. I'll stay away until you call me and say, "Okay, Leo, we're going to show you." But I do have to know how to use it on Saturday morning. And now we're replacing one other thing we're doing. It's good that you make this Telos because we have to replace our Zephyr with a new digital Zephyr.
Well, it's really the same as that one. Actually, it doesn't have the mixer built in because we didn't figure we'd need that. But instead of wiring analog wires to its audio input and audio output, it's just the same Ethernet cable. It's going to carry in the inputs and outputs.
And that means though no more. Well, they still connect to the ISDN.
It'll still be ISDN.
So phone calls can still come in.
Out in the car, Leo, I brought you a little toy to show you. It's the IP version of your ISDN box. And someday when ISDN is no longer available,
because that's a real problem.
You'll be talking to Westwood One over IP.
Yeah. Well, I won't be talking to Westwood One unless Premier fires me.
I'm sorry, Premier over IP.
No, I'm on the big one, not that little one.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I was very concerned about. I've talked to people. Scott Bourne was trying to put up a studio in San Francisco called AT&T, and they said, no, we don't sell ISDN anymore. He said, what do you mean you don't sell it? I need ISDN. Well, we really don't want to sell it. They want to use IP, but IP, the public network, is hugely latent. I don't know how you're going to solve that.
We've got, actually some of the developers of Skype have worked with some of the developers of Fraunhofer to come up with basically a very professional version of a codec that has some of the elasticity benefits of the Skype codec.
Oh, interesting.
So this codec actually works very well.
You've seen people use it for broadcast?
Oh, yeah, there's people using it right now for broadcast.
Because I'd love to dump the ISDN line. We have got more bandwidth than God in here. I mean, we've got tons of bandwidth. Yeah. But it almost feels silly to use a 128 kilobit ISDN line for the most important thing we do in this room. We've got, more than 15 megabits, more than that, up and down in this room.
The benefit of ISDN is that it's absolutely positively guaranteed. It's tariffed in every state. It's a tariffed
And it's
service.
point to point.
It's point to point.
There's no latency. There's zero jitter.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mostly.
Yeah.
It's certainly not caused by the public network or congestion.
But on the public network, though, everything is best effort basis.
Right.
So Telos makes codecs now that work over private WANs that don't need all kinds of all this extra stuff. But we also make a codec that works over the public internet, even over Wi-Fi and 3G connections.
If I had a VPN, is that a private WAN or no? It has to be.
A VPN over the public internet still has the same problems as
we have to have like fiber from point to point fiber or something.
Right, but for your show, you could do either way. You could have some private WAN to Premiere,
right?
Or you could use.
I think that's what
internet.
DirecTV was going to do was fiber to LA.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Well, it would have to be video.
Well, there are providers that will give you guaranteed bandwidth from point to point.
Right. They were going to bond T1s.
There you go. You could do that. Yeah.
Yeah, or this EFM that we're using, the Ethernet to the first mile, is. It's been a little jittery, though. We have to find out why it's so jittery. It may not be us. It may be just the routers of some of the people we're talking to. I suspect it's that because it's not jittery with everybody. It's just jittery with people like Steve Gibson who have a lot of complex routing in their house, and I think that's really where the problem lies. Well, Kirk, I'm not going to keep you. I know your wife is in town. You probably want to go to a good dinner. Yeah. We'll take you out a couple of times while you're here, but enjoy the wine country, and thank you so much. I'm really thrilled about this.
I'm looking forward to talking to you about this again on Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, we'll talk on the radio show. We'll go, wherever you want to plug. And what we're going to do, I think what we're going to do is take one of these cameras and put it up in the corner. Feed that FireWire into the Streamosaurus. Feed the audio from the mic on the camera to the Streamosaurus. It won't sound great. It'll sound like this. It'll sound like the room.
Yeah. It'll be a dedicated stream on one.
But that's what we're going to do with a stream when we go down.
Colleen, whenever you and I talk. Yes, Colleen. Now we're hooking up this.
You can swear.
Set that IP address, Colleen.
You can swear. We'll have a lower third that says this is actual work in progress. Please cover your ears. So no, I imagine. I'm going to be watching at home to see how well it's going. And I'm sure a few other people will.
Yeah.
But I think we can get a wide enough shot that we can kind of see as this goes on. This is going to be really fun. So as I said, folks. I haven't heard from Paul yet, but I'm hoping we can get this last show recorded.
Is he still in Amsterdam?
No, he's back.
He's in Seattle right now.
Oh, okay.
Is he in Seattle?
Yeah.
Oh, he's with Microsoft?
Gnomedex or something.
Oh, Gnomedex. So maybe that's why I haven't heard from him, because I hope we can. I would love to get this out of the way.
Now that's Thursday morning at 11.
Oh, no, we're going to move Paul to 9:30 Wednesday.
Okay.
So he said yes. So I'm going to move Paul till tomorrow.
Okay.
And that means our last show in this place will be UPC Perspective, 7 to 9 p.m. on Wednesday.
Okay.
From 9 p.m., as soon as you get out of here, I mean, nobody's going to work overnight, but as soon as you can come in and first thing. Well, you could if you want.
That's the norm.
You could if you want.
Actually, we're going to have the whole thing built tomorrow out on some desks.
Oh, you're going to build it out here?
Well, it's all going to work tomorrow.
Oh. And then so all it really is you just take this stuff out. Colleen has some work to do because we have this rack here. It's got to move. This stuff has to be replaced. I guess if it's all built, pre-built tomorrow.
Most of our time Thursday will just be spent configuring. Okay, now is this good enough for this show? No, we got to do this and this and this.
Profiles.
Okay, fine. So it's all web-based.
I should come in for that probably.
And just.
I suspect I should be. So it sounds like we might be able to do This Week in Fun on Friday. You think? 3 p.m. Friday? 2 p.m. Friday? Right. So let's not. We won't schedule anything, but we might be able to call her.
Not schedule, but if she could,
we might be able to call her Thursday afternoon and say, "Hey, guess what?"
I'd be real surprised if we weren't easily doing stuff on Friday.
Sounds like I should be here Thursday. I'll tell you, I have a meeting till 10:30 on Thursday. I'll come back here. Well, it won't be sooner than Thursday. I'll come in Thursday, and then I have to go up to another meeting at 5 p.m. But I could be here like 11 to 4 on Thursday because probably Colleen does not know what the profiles need to be.
Right.
So I probably should be here for at least a few profiles so I get the idea.
If we show her how to do one.
Yeah.
If you can order a book on Amazon, you can make a profile.
Okay. Well, I know these are designed for DJs to use, so they can't be too complicated.
The profiles really are for engineers, but it's all web-based selections. There's no cryptic files to write.
Right. So, it's done on the web. It's not done on. Oh, it's not done on the board. It's
now
done on
the web-based makes XML files. That then are what.
Oh, this should be very easy.
Yeah.
If it's on the web, and then I can go in and modify it very easily.
You can do it. You can
on the fly.
The very first console we ever installed was at Auburn University, Auburn, Alabama. The engineer for the upcoming football season had connected the feed from the stadium into one of the nodes, but he forgot to program it on the console. He gets a call Saturday morning from the disc jockey saying, "Hey man, where's the football game come in, man?" And Mark, the engineer, he had some late night DJ hoo-ha the night before. He was in no mood to come into the radio station. Right. He says, "Just a minute, hang on." He gets on his computer, he VPNs in.
Wow.
And he assigns it, and he says, "Okay." He calls the guy back. Reload your profile. It'll be on pot 16.
That's nice.
PC and was fiddling with Kansas Public Radio. Go to my.
Yeah,
PC.
we'll just go to my PC probably.
Yeah.
No, he was in real time while we were on Go to My PC.
Yeah. Actually, that was my station in Mississippi. Actually.
Oh, Mississippi.
Yeah.
And
you own a station?
They were on the air.
4 stations. Yeah.
You do.
I'm part owner. I own the part that doesn't make any money.
That's not hard to do.
We got 2 in American Samoa.
You're out in Nashville.
Yeah.
You have 2 stations in American Samoa?
And 2 in Mississippi.
You were in radio for a long time, obviously. Yeah. With DJ? What did you do?
Well, I couldn't make any money being a DJ, so I became an engineer.
I know that feeling.
And then I thought, ownership is a thing to do, so I couldn't win ownership.
Well, that was smart.
So I've done TV weather for about 6 years.
You're kidding?
Yeah. No.
You still do that?
When I'm the last guy on the list. When Fox 17 in Nashville can't find anybody else to do the weather, they call Kirk.
Oh, that's neat.
So.
I hope you don't mind you got the MSU mug. Is that okay?
That's great.
It's Michigan State. It's okay. It's not Mississippi.
Yeah.
Ole Miss. Oh, Kirk, I don't know how to thank you.
That's going to be fun.
But it's going to be gorgeous. And we're just going to have a Axia cam that is always pointed at the Axia. So that anybody who wants to could just come on the web and say, ooh, ah. And now, is Premier using Axia yet?
I don't know. Don't think so.
I can help you there.
Lots of affiliates are. So.
I'll help you there. We'll make sure Premier's next board is an Axia. So we're going to continue to. This won't affect you guys, except that there will be no. The traditional shows won't be on Thursday. You'll be watching instead of live stream of people cussing. a blue stream of cuss. And then Friday, we may or may not be back to normal, but certainly we will by Saturday. And you probably won't notice any difference. The audio will be better on the stream.
Oh, we're providing you with some audio processing.
Oh, you are?
The Telos?
Because, you're replacing. I have 2 Aphex. I have an Aphex Dominator, and I have a 230 in there. I have a lot of analog audio on the chain. So we can replace that stuff?
We're putting in, for the streams, an Omnia 1 multicast, which is a one-rack unit audio processor that
is it digital?
Absolutely. In fact, it's live wire in and out.
Oh, interesting.
And now it also has analog and AES ins and outs, but we'll use the live wire. It'll have power and Ethernet, and that's it.
And what does it do?
It does single-band, multi-band processing that is intended for codecs. So all of your streams going out are coded, right?
Right.
They're all MP3 or something else.
Yep.
And so what you have to do the idea here is to make the codec sound as good as possible. We all know there's compromises in codecs,
right,
especially at lower bit rates.
Right.
So we've spent years trying to understand how can we massage the audio?
That's a big deal.
To make the codec as efficient with its limited bits as it can be.
Yeah, because these are not codec aware at all. They're just analog processing.
Right. And they're okay. I mean, your streams sound okay, except once in a while the levels get too high or something like
that's what I put the Dominator in, and I haven't really figured it properly. But I knew that we were going to get better.
Actually, the guy who invented all of our audio processors, his first audio processor was he took an Aphex Dominator and he modified it and he called it the Vigilante. And it was the audio processor on the famous Z100 in New York.
You're kidding.
The station that went from worst to first.
Yes.
In
it's
one book.
Famous.
Yeah.
It's legendary.
It was a modified
their sound.
Aphex Dominator.
Well, I want to sound like that.
Well, we don't want to be in your face all day.
Like that. That's cool. Yeah. That's cool. So we can program that. Is that web programmable?
Absolutely. You can program from. If you don't like the way it's sounding, you can get on.
We're going to have so much fun. We're going to have so much fun with this. This is like I'm a kid in a candy store. Because audio is all I really care about. To me, I'm an audio guy. Why else would I be wearing these big old headphones?
Every mic will have its own audio processor as well.
Individual?
That's in the console. Yes, they're all separate, settable for each person. And then give me the name of 3 different people who sit in this chair.
Well, Dvorak, Brian Brushwood, Molly Wood, they all have different sounds.
They can each have their own processing, and all you got to do is
say that's a Molly Wood sound.
You set Dvorak's mic or Molly Wood's mic, and whenever you bring up Molly Wood or John Dvorak, it'll have their processing right there.
Now, I guess it could do that on the Skype channel, right?
It can.
We're getting crap, of course, compared to a mic.
Yeah, but it's possible, for example, to use an expander if there's noise to knock the noise down. Yeah.
This is going to make a big difference in our sound. I mean, it was a big change. Thanks to Colleen, we went to Skypeosaurus. We got individual channels for everybody.
Yeah.
For a long time, we had no control, but now at least we have individual channels. But if I can take those individual channels and process them each uniquely, that's going to make a big difference. Mm-hmm. Of course, you're going to see me spending hours tweaking before every show. We'll have to reduce the amount of tweaking that I do. But that's very exciting. Well, thank you. So what's that called?
That's the Omnia 1 multicast.
Wow.
Also, do you miss that sound in your headphones, that process sound, where you get to talk like this?
I don't need to. I do it anyway.
Well, we'll also have headphone processing for everyone.
Oh, that's nice.
That's the Omnia 8X. It's 8 processors in one box.
So is that a headphone distribution?
It's for general purpose processing. Whatever you want to process. We'll probably run the Skypeosaurus to it because the levels might be from who knows where.
Yes, we'd love to.
So it'll just be some general processing on each source that needs it. For example, you record those Skypeosauruses directly to Adobe Audition, without going through the console. They get a direct feed.
Oh, yeah. So
they will.
Yeah.
But it'd be
so
nice
they'd always be nominal level, and they'd always be cleaned up, and that's kind of automatic then. Automatic expansion and automatic compression and all that. Wow, so you will hear, folks. You will hear a very big difference.
If you listen on computer speakers this big, you may not hear it because you don't sound bad now. But if you throw this up on some nice speakers,
people will hear a difference. Yeah. Shows like This Week in Geek, This Week in Google. With Jeff Jarvis, we were always having trouble with his audio. Having that processing in there could make a huge difference.
Now remember, bad audio in
I understand.
Can make bad audio out.
Oh, I understand. Garbage in, garbage out. We'll get as good as we can anyway. Yeah. Oh, this is neat. Thank you, Kirk. I really appreciate it.
We set the bar pretty high now. I got to deliver.
Kirk Harnack, he is with Telos Systems, Director for International Business at Axia. If you want to know more about Axia, you can go to their website, especially if you're in the biz and you want to find out more about it. It's Axia Audio, AXIA Audio .com. And I think it makes sense that an all-digital network like ours should really have all-digital audio. I mean, it just makes sense. It's just obvious. Yeah. Thank you, Kirk. Really excited. Bye.